Hey everyone, so CEO Boris Jordan of Curaleaf and his second largest shareholder came out and defended itself this week in wake of obviously the events going on in the Ukraine. So what does this mean for the company? What does this mean for the sector? And overall, what can we anticipate in the markets moving forward? And most importantly, our thoughts and prayers going out to all people affected by what's happening in the Ukraine. We discuss this and more in our latest podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Traded Black podcast, a division of the Dales Media Group. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and as usual, before we get started, all views of the Traded Black podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as an investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. You should actually time that, Anthony. I know with our other podcast with Ryan, he's doing that in 9.5 seconds.
Yeah, we got a competition going. And Ryan's sitting there rapping it like Eminem.
I'm thinking that was probably 14. I've got some work to do.
I'll get the clock going.
We should. Good to see you, Anthony, as usual. Ben, how's it going, brother?
Going well. Just looking at the world events. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We have the Taliban calling for peace.
Yeah, it's
that's honestly like a South Park episode.
What do you guys think of all this?
I mean,
like, what do you take on this past week? Like,
I mean, to be honest, I'm a little bit scared right now because Putin's getting his ass kicked. And I think that over history, when you've seen these kind of dictators go in and it doesn't go as planned, they usually start to turn it up versus put their tail between their legs and go home. Unfortunately. So, I mean, I think the next week's going to be a pretty pivotal moment with what's going on because, I mean, Russia's not taking Kyiv as easily as they thought. And he's not. Yeah, I mean, he's up in his bunker. Yeah, he's up in his bunker in the Ural Mountains right now with the rest of the oligarchs, kind of figuring out what's going on. I mean, they've got hypersonic weapons, they've got thermobaric rockets. I mean, they've got a lot of heavy artillery they can start firing into the Ukraine if this doesn't really go the way that they want it to go, and it's not going the way that they want it to go. Unfortunately,
you're already seeing that this weekend with some of the artillery that's being trucked in. What were you going to say, Ben?
Yeah, I was going to say that the Ukrainians, it's all being stepped up. The Ukrainians apparently using banned phosphorus bombs too, which burn the skin and all that. I think they're banned by international convention, things like that. So there's an escalation, but just as it relates to the financial markets, like we're talking huge bombshells that I don't think I've ever seen in my own lifetime. Like we're talking about the EU freezing Russian central bank assets. We're talking about restricting airspace, flights of Russian aircraft over airspace. It's going to have huge ramifications for multinational corporations. Is Russia going to seize U.S. assets in sort of a tit for tat situation where these big multinationals like McDonald's and PepsiCo, they do like 3 to 5, 7% of their business in Russia. So there's like huge reverberations that are going to happen with the FX pairs coming up on Sunday night. Everything. It's unbelievable, really. I mean, how this is all going to unfold in the markets.
Well, Anthony,
you just made me very bearish on Monday morning.
But weekend Wall Street's only going down like 370 points, which is like 1% on the Dow futures. It's
but the problem...
am I seeing something like I can't believe...
The problem is everything you just said is analytical and to the point of what usually most people aren't realizing. No one's thinking about the economic impacts that's going to reverberate on the consumer level. From this, no one's probably thought about the FX pairings or any of the asset distribution across country lines. I mean, unfortunately, by the ramifications from this, Russia might become a global hermit, and if Russia does become a global hermit, it's going to be a very big problem. And I mean, I think the problems that you're talking about are going to that they could take the market down very easily, paired with everything else that's going on.
Yeah, you brought up the, Ben, just sanctions that were obviously implemented in Russia, both in the EU and Canada and in the U.S. as well. One other thing was that Russia banks were kicked off of SWIFT. You wanted to touch on that because what kind of impact would that have on the crypto space?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm for it because potentially it could kick them over onto the blockchain and into using crypto. At the same time, I mean, it is kind of like a fail-safe that if you're a country and a bad actor and you get out of line, hey, we can just shut you out until you fall in line. With crypto, they would decentralize their financial system and they wouldn't be, I guess, barred by those regulations. So, I mean, it's a gift and a curse. What's really scaring me is there's 12% of the global Bitcoin sitting in Russia. That obviously can't. There's going to be no effect on that with what's going on with their financial systems and sanctions, et cetera. But I mean, I'm curious to see what happens to that amount of the currency, because I mean, if it goes offline, if all the mining and stuff starts to go offline, it could send shockwaves through the crypto market as well.
Well,
another place that can send shockwaves is through the futures market for gas and things like that. Like, how is Europe, where they receive 40% of their natural gas input from Russia? How are they going to pay for it if Russia has kicked off SWIFT? Now they say that they want to still maintain that pipeline, like they want to do some alternative payment actions, but will Russia reciprocate in that case? I guess they need the foreign exchanges, but I mean, is that going to complicate things? Is natural gas going to skyrocket? Is oil going to skyrocket? There's all these questions that have huge ramifications potentially for the greater economy and input costs and things like that going everyday products. So it's going to be crazy to see how this all works out with if Russia is kicked off SWIFT, which I guess they are for now.
Also, let's not forget, I was reading an article yesterday. It was select Russian financial institutions. So it's not every Russian financial institution that's going to get kicked off SWIFT. I'm assuming they're going to be tactical to the point where they're not going to kick ones that actually they need to be driving commerce off of for now. But that's not to say that they hit that nuclear option and just kick them completely off of SWIFT in the coming weeks if they don't pull back.
Well, Russia's made it clear in the past that they're willing to go on the offensive in terms of conventional warfare, which is obviously the case now, as well as digital warfare. But in wake of all this, there's many still questioning whether the country is truly bullish on the crypto industry. After this week, what do you think, Anthony?
What do I think about Russia being bullish on the crypto industry?
Yeah.
I think they are. I mean, they said they're going to allow it as legal tender. After 2 weeks prior, they said they were going to make it illegal. So I think it's something that they're evaluating. But I mean, Russia's pretty advanced from a technological perspective. I mean, there's a lot of developers in Russia. There's a lot of very high level hackers in Russia. There's a lot of technology that comes out of Russia. I know they're in the Stone Ages countrywide to some extent, but I mean, at the top, they're very technologically advanced. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already leveraging crypto. I mean, if you look at a chart, Putin's basically delevered their entire balance sheet from U.S. debt over the past, I think it was 8 years. The graph is literally just going right to left. So, I mean, he's preemptively started to plan around this. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got some sort of reserves in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. I mean, the future is going to tell us what goes on moving forward after this SWIFT stuff really settles.
Interesting stuff, to say the least. Speaking of Russia, and we continue on that topic and how it's affecting, obviously, more than just crypto. It's affecting, obviously, the markets. But let's focus now on cannabis. And other news which really turned a lot of people's heads in the industry this week was Curaleaf came out in defense of itself by saying both CEO Boris Jordan and its second largest shareholder, Andrei Blokh, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, was a U.S. citizen. The stock was outperforming its peers noticeably on Friday morning, but finished more or less in line with the market. So anyone entering the room not hearing what went down earlier this week, maybe, Ben, talk about what happened, why this is important, and most importantly, why investors should take notice based off of this announcement.
Yeah, basically what happened is because of the whole situation in Ukraine, it came to the attention from some people on social media that have a fairly big following that the CEO, Boris Jordan, and also their second largest shareholder, Andrei Blokh, with 21% ownership, have ties to Russia. Basically, Boris has a Ukrainian-Russian background, and it was claimed that Andrei Blokh was basically a Russian oligarch. So there were questions on whether there were going to be maybe some sanctioning or where Curaleaf was going to be impacted in some event. So as that took place on Friday in the price action, Curaleaf went was down, noticeably underperforming its peers. It was down about 5 or 6% in the AM session, whereas Green Thumb and Cresco were only down 1 or 2%. TrueLeaf and Curaleaf were actually floating with positive numbers, flat to about up 1%. So there's noticeable underperformance, and the volume was also elevated in Curaleaf. So there's no question that had some sort of impact, because the night before, even Curaleaf itself came out and felt it had to defend the allegations by saying its CEO was a U.S. citizen. It was an American company. So this played on sentiment. There's no doubt that there was some selling in the AM because of that. Fortunately, it seemed to have petered out in the AM, because Curaleaf was, some buyers came in and it didn't actually finish the session too out of line with its competitors. So, and then, they were in Benzanga to, defend itself and all that. So, hopefully this situation is put to an end. But it did, ruffle some feathers, and fortunately, I think long term there's not going to be too many ramifications. So if you bought the dip here because you like the company, I think that was a good thing to do, because I don't see them being any long term ramifications from this. American company, 99% of its revenues are in the U.S. U.S. domiciled. So I think obviously they got entangled with this situation, but I don't know if there's going to be any long term impact.
Anthony, you surprised they actually came out and addressed this?
No,
I think this is no.
This has been a rumor for the last 6 years. This has been a rumor since they went public. I mean, Boris made billions of dollars in Russia. That's how he made his wealth. It doesn't mean he's a Russian oligarch that's in cahoots with Putin. I think it's completely just irrelevant towards the business. I mean, this is probably another MSO sitting there, like, just stirring the pot, just starting to get some news going about Curaleaf, or trying to affect the share price of Curaleaf. This is old news. I've heard about this literally 6 years ago when they first went public. It was like, the Russian mob is involved in Curaleaf, or you need to look into the money that's behind Curaleaf. There's a couple other top tier MSOs that I could show you some pretty sketchy underpinnings from their initial investors. That's
putting it mildly too.
Yeah, that are much worse. I'm not going to name names because I'm a shareholder in a couple of them. But I think Boris has nothing to worry about. This is nothing but a headline. It'll go away by the end of next week. And Curaleaf's not going anywhere. Yeah,
I think one of the things it does show is that this is all public information, right? The ownership of the company, Andrei Blokh, and things like that. So the fact that it was underperforming in the AM by such a degree, 4 to 5% at one point, noticeably underperforming MSOs, for example, it just shows that the exchange, being on this tier 2 exchange, they need to get off these exchanges, these companies, essentially, because if this was on a major tier 1 exchange, if this was on NASDAQ, NYSE, you probably wouldn't have seen as much to a degree of the underperformance in the AM as it showed, right? It just shows that
that's why we're here.
They need to migrate.
Yeah, I mean, that's why cannabis is where it is right now, is because we're all stuck on the CSE. I mean, it's literally the reason the capital markets are completely dislocated from the fundamentals of these businesses. They need to get off They need to get off that exchange very quickly and be able to uplist.
Yeah, and we've been pounding that message for quite some time. Because when you look at the industry this week, we gave up our February gains from earlier this month. Obviously, show me what industry wasn't impacted hard this week. So let's focus on what we're going to be doing, obviously, this week with cannabis. Is it status quo, or can we expect different things heading into this week, Ben?
Well, I think if investors are looking at it impartially, we cannot lie. I think the sector is very weak right now. I mean, the broad markets rallied, continuation rally on Friday. S&P was up, 2.3%, NASDAQ up 1.6%, and MSOs finished down. It did not continue with that rally that it had on Thursday. So, the market is still, cannabis market is still weak right now. And now we're heading into earnings season, and that might be a byproduct of it, because there's a couple notes that came out. One expecting that TrueLeaf from Needham, expecting that TrueLeaf would have probably a messy quarter, quote unquote. And Curaleaf got its price target ticked down $1 as well. So I think earnings season is going to come up in March. There's going to be a focus on that. Hopefully most of this is already priced in. And but no question that maybe growth and the margin compression that we've been talking about is sort of weighing in on the market right now. Could be a buy the market situation if it's already priced in, even if the earnings come out a little soft, but we shall see. But March definitely will have some earnings news, and then we can sort of gauge the market from there.
You agree with that, Anthony, that we're headed for a kind of messy earnings report? Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I'm sitting on my hands for the next month. I'm not buying anything. I'm selling stuff and putting it into cash. I've pared back my exposure to everything from NFTs to crypto to stocks last week until there's some semblance of normalcy on the horizon. I just think that the geopolitical stuff is too risky right now. I mean, like Ben alluded to at the beginning of the show, God knows how this is going to reverberate back to multinational corporations. And I mean, if the broad market goes down, cannabis and crypto are probably going to go down 2 times harder. If that happens. And I mean, I don't want to be sitting there just waiting for something to happen. I was proactive last week. I mean, I did sell a decent amount of NFTs, especially to turn into cash, not just crypto. So, I mean, I got defensive, and I mean, I'm going to sit on my hands, and I expect a lot of chop in the market for the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that you said the key word right there that I think all investors should really be right now, in my opinion, is be defensive, right? Like if you're a cannabis investor, you don't want to be chasing spikes in the market. It's not that type of market right now. It's what could be described as a bottoming process right now. And, there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk from the multinationals. There's a lot of risk that inflation may not be under control if energy prices skyrocket because of the Russian situation. There's just a lot of risk right now. So, I mean, be defensive, have your 3 to 5 year timelines like we spoke about last week, and, buy at prices where you feel comfortable at. And if the market declines from there, you'll still feel good about your position. Do not chase the market. Be defensive, I think, is the way to go for now anyway, at least in the rest of this quarter for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be ominous, but this is almost like a perfect storm right now to take assets down completely. I mean, it's not, everything that could go wrong, aside from an asteroid coming from outer space, is pretty much gone wrong in the past 2 years now. I mean, it's kind of fucking crazy what's going on, to be honest. When you pair in now this geopolitical stuff,
we need some weed, I think, for this podcast, don't we?
We need something.
Doom and gloom. Yeah, well, I want to keep things somewhat positive. I look at the psychedelic space. Cathy Wood has expressed she is a firm believer in innovation, and I got to hand it to her during these times. She's continued to buy. She obviously is the CEO from ARC and continues to add to her position at Atai Life Sciences in her Genomic Revolution ETF, total now up to 663,000 shares. So it appears savvy investors are understanding this opportunity pertaining to Atai, Ben, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think Cathy obviously likes the price points down here, and she's taking a stake in a position. Now, I've noticed that she's actually added to her position throughout the week. So these geopolitical events are not really don't seem to be playing much of a factor in her dissuading her from purchasing more. So I would expect that total allocation would start it off at 0.01%. It's now up to 0.1%. That its high is going to move up the chain from the Genomic Revolution ETF from like the very bottom right now. They have 53 positions. It's in like the high 40s. You're probably going to see a steady ascent up that allocation chain, I think, moving forward.
What do you think? Can you further elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, she just started out, right? I mean, with this position, the fact that she's adding here during these very volatile times and she's not dissuaded from buying leads me to believe that she's looking at this from the long term. As Anthony said before, she has a long-term view anyway. So if she believes in a position, she's just going to buy at whatever levels they're at with a view of 5, 7, 10 years down the road. So obviously she's looking at Atai as a good it's at a good cost basis right now, and she's going to keep adding. And I don't think the geopolitical situation is going to dissuade her either way based on her personality and how she invests in other things.
No, I mean, also, let's not forget that position's what, $3.6 million net for her. I mean, that's a rounding error when it comes to her funds. But I mean, the good thing is that she could double that and triple that pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this will be.
It's a pretty big position. It's at least a testament to a tie that they're the strongest name in the space that would actually warrant investment from their funds.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to touch on was the state of Utah lawmakers on Friday. They sent a bill to the governor that will create a task force to study and make recommendation on the therapeutic potential of psychedelic drugs and possible regulations for lawful use. I bring this up because when you look at the state of Utah, both House and Senates are deeply Republican. So I have to ask.
They're deeply Mormon, too.
Of course. But what do you guys think of this? Like, I know it doesn't get a lot of attention, but pretty valuable bill, obviously, being sent to, obviously, the governor, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, I'm all for whoever wants to research these compounds and drive innovation and get them more to the foreground. I mean, it does surprise me. There's a lot of places in Utah that are dry. There's a lot of places in Utah that don't even sell alcohol.
Yeah, of course.
Granted, like I've said for the past year or so, this is not a recreational compound. This is a purely medicinal compound. Yeah. For what it's being used for. So, I mean, obviously, I could take their bias from vices out of the equation. But I mean, whatever they want to do, I'm all for it. Let's go. Use it for palliative care. Use it for mental wellness and rehabilitating people for mental illness. Whatever they want to do, I'm all for.
Yeah, it had a lot of attention on this end, and that was my biggest takeaway as well. That the House and Senate, state Senates, is very Republican. So this is obviously good news because it's very bipartisan. It's very bipartisan, the issue of mental health, mental being. Despite the fact that psychedelics are involved, it doesn't really seem to. That's taken a backseat to the fact that people want better solutions, more efficacious solutions to fix mental health, and the fact that a deeply Republican legislature is going for this is very good signs that it's going to happen elsewhere, and also that it doesn't have the same issues as cannabis had. Even though it has broad support, it's still very partisan in a lot of ways, and in various states, especially at the federal level, especially. But it doesn't seem like psychedelic medicine and research is going to have that same stigma to it.
No, and I mean Republicans are getting smart. Republicans are understanding what issues they need to get behind. And I mean, I really do think that you're going to see Republicans get behind cannabis, crypto, psychedelics, start to get behind issues that are resonating with a younger audience and issues that are really front and center that they can level on, that they're not this ultra conservative, just sect of the government, because the Democrats have completely lost everybody in that demographic. Like, they've gone so crazy to the left that it's just no one wants to even deal with them, even if they did get on top of these issues, and they're not on top of these issues. So, I mean, I really do think you're going to see more Republicans come out and say, hey, we're for psychedelics, we're for cannabis, we're for crypto, especially going into the midterms.
You know what? It's amazing how, remember when Republicans used to be considered the party of big corporations? They used to acquiesce to big corporate.
They still are.
Not saying that they don't, but the Democrats used to be the party of the labor unions supporting the working class and all that. And it seems, at least on a federal level, I'm generalizing, of course, but it seems like a lot of them are in with the corporate elite and stuff like that. So I don't know if the tide's turning. But
I mean, big tech. Thanks to Trump. Thanks to Trump, big tech and Wall Street are way to the left now. They try to stay moderate, but all those CEOs and all those boards are all very liberal and very left leaning, as opposed to a lot of other industries. So yeah, the corporate elite are with the Democrats.
You think there's certain compounds, and the data proves to be positive, which it definitely is heading in that direction, that we will see certain compounds legalized prior to. Like, do you think we will see federal legalization from a medicinal standpoint? You don't think that'll happen?
Wait, from a medicinal? Well, hold on. Yeah. Legalization would imply that it's recreational and medical.
Right. So you'll never see that, though.
No, because, I mean, with any psychedelic,
and I agree with that.
Yeah, because not only because I just don't believe that, but unlike any substance, you can turn a microdose into a macrodose. I mean, if it's legal, meanwhile, you give me a tin that's got 20.1 microdoses of psilocybin, I can just eat the whole damn tin and be a space cadet.
Right.
I mean, it's not that there's nothing stopping you from doing that. So, I mean, I don't think that any of these substances are ever going to be truly legalized where they're recreationally available. But I do think that they're going to be commercialized from a medicinal perspective eventually, especially if they can create. And I don't think it's going to be any of the compounds that they're looking at now. I think it's going to have to be some sort of synthetic derivative of LSD or MDMA or psilocybin that's uniquely derived and uniquely different from the organic compound, and they'll be able to commercialize that for sure, especially if it's got efficacy as it relates to mental to rehabilitation from mental illness.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we could see a mixture of both. There's some high-level people on Maps talking about maybe perhaps MDMA being commercialized in a assisted therapy setting. So we're going to have to see whether that happens, because there's been some good phase 3 studies on the efficacy there, and the safety profile is pretty high. But yeah, I definitely agree with Anthony. It's going to be, I think most of the psychedelic drugs that are going to come out are going to be out 5 to 7 years from now, if they go the distance, and they're going to be derivatives of the natural thing, natural psilocybin.
Yep.
But it could be both. It could be both. It could be some substances, if they show that efficacy and safety. It could be the actual original substance itself, but the compounds, I think, are the most exciting things, where you can take the best qualities of these natural substances, or even chemical substances like MDMA that aren't natural, and make them even better. Lower offset times, faster offset times, more efficacious in actual clinical settings, and that's where the future lies. But you could see a mixture of both, I think, at some point.
Yeah, but I don't think there's ever going to be a point in time where you can go to the dispensary and get an MDMA tablet and some mushrooms with your eighth of cannabis.
Never.
That's not. Yeah. I don't see that happening whatsoever.
Yeah. I agreed. Not on a rec basis. No, it would be in a medicinal setting, assisted therapy setting, for sure.
Which they should be. They should be used. It's been proven already that there's efficacy there. Using it in a controlled setting with a therapist.
It won't matter, guys. By 100%. 2040, we'll have neuron links attached to our brains through AI. We'll be a billion times smarter.
Speaking of Elon, did you see how he diverted the Starlink satellites to Ukraine to get them to actually get the country internet?
I did not. Walk us through this.
Okay, I did. The country, I did see that.
So literally, this is how powerful. It's actually kind of scary, but this is how powerful Elon is. The country of Ukraine, and this is kind of it's amazing that this is how people are communicating. So the country of Ukraine tweeted at Elon Musk about the Russians cyber attacking their internet, taking down their internet infrastructure. At Elon literally replied, "The Starlink satellites are coming online and being redirected to Ukraine. You now have internet." And he's actually, it's fucking crazy. And he's now diverting more resources from the Starlink network to Ukraine to bring them internet and circumvent what Russia's doing to their infrastructure.
You know what makes that crazy, Anthony? It makes that crazy because obviously it's probably a Russian strategy to disable those communications in the internet.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of their strategy of war, right? So they can't communicate. And yet Elon Musk is still contravening that and giving a workaround for Ukraine to still be on the internet, those communications. Yeah. So they're, in a way, my take on it is he's contravening the wishes of a whole major superpower by providing this Starlink service and to upload communications again in the country. So it takes a lot of big balls to do that. I mean, these KGB has people all over the world. I'm sure if they wanted to, they can have situations where they can do some harm. So the fact that Elon's still going against that, is pretty crazy to me.
Literally diverted his satellite network to the country of Ukraine to provide internet during a ground invasion. That's where Elon's at now.
Is he the most powerful person in the world?
Like powerful? No. I mean, as far as power, it's probably the president of the United States in perpetuity, unfortunately, just with the arsenal and the resources that we have. He's definitely the most powerful private citizen in the world, I would say.
100%.
As far as his influence, as far as his resources, and as far as what he has, I mean, he's privately sending people into space. And now building internet infrastructure in space. There's the only person that comes close to him is Bezos, and I still think Elon's got way more influence than Bezos.
If I threw it out there, where is Elon Musk in 10 years from now? What would you say?
He's probably flying around. I mean, it's as crazy as it sounds. He's probably flying around in an Iron Man suit like Tony Stark.
And the impact that he has on the world.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if there's a point in time. Elon's what, 45 probably?
Early 50s.
Is he?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised in the next 15 years if there's something like what happened in the Avengers movie and the government needs to intervene and say, hey, you've got too much power, or you're becoming too powerful. And too advanced in the technology that you actually handle. We need to come up with some agreement to where we're working together versus him working autonomously.
Yeah,
because he's going everywhere. I mean, think about it. He's in clean energy. He's in space. He's in internet. He's going into I don't even know what to call Neuralink, but cybernetics. He's going to be everywhere. That Tesla conglomerate, SpaceX that he's building. It's not. It's not going to stay bifurcated and in units by design. That's all going to be rolled into one Skynet, if you want to call it that. But I mean, I don't doubt that he's going to go there. I don't know who's going to be able to supersede him and be able to take it into the future. But I mean, I do think that there's going to be a point in time where the government's like, hey, like, we need to talk. You've got too much power being a private citizen.
But then what kind of power do you think the government will have on him? Like that's where I'm like, where are we?
Not the government like controlling him, like the government just being like, you need oversight to a degree. And to be honest, I think that he'd tell the government to go fuck themselves if they did come
he would, and he's done that. And that's the one thing you got to respect about Elon, if you like his opinions or not. Like, he's come out for, say, like the trucker convoy, right? He was kind of a supporter there. He tweeted some stuff out when it came out, and he's not always with the power structure narrative in a lot of ways, right? So he's powerful enough that he's one of the only private citizens that he can actually stand up to that and tell his opinions online and tell his opinions about what he thinks.
Oh yeah,
without getting shot down.
That's what I'm saying. He's the most powerful guy.
And to be honest, this is how crazy it is. He's probably the most powerful private citizen in the world, and he still can't talk about China.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. That's how powerful China is.
That's the one. No. That's the one. Yeah. You can't.
As powerful as Elon Musk is, you still can't fuck with China. Yeah.
Did you watch the movie Don't Look Up?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was a really good movie.
It was great, but I mean, it's kind of eerily true. The way that we're kind of,
it's true.
The way that we think about climate change, it's literally happening. Whether you want to believe it or not, like whether it's being caused by us or whether it's just the natural progression of what the Earth does, I'm of the opinion that we probably couldn't tell. We haven't been here long enough, but the climate is changing and we're kind of just ignoring it.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to ask you guys, football season's over. Did you guys see the incident between Michigan and Wisconsin last Sunday with Juwan Howard?
Yeah, I did.
Suspended 5 games.
Yeah.
Like, were you?
No, you guys he's suspended the rest of the season, isn't he?
Rest of the regular season, which equates to 5 games. So if Michigan does
back for the tournament,
well, if the NCAA tournament, from my understanding, yes, he is back for the tournament if they make it, but they're on the bubble right now. But
cool.
What was your guy like? You know, I know it's kind of a touchy subject, but were you surprised that he only got 5 games? Or were you surprised he was not suspended more? Are you surprised that he kept his job? Do you think he should have lost his job? Like,
I mean, I like Juwan Howard. He used to be a bench coach for the Heat.
Great coach, great person.
Yeah, I think he should have been fired.
Yeah,
I think what he did was completely unwarranted. I mean, you never put your hands on someone else, and kind of he really instigated it, and then he fucking hit the guy. I mean,
however,
no,
he was grabbed by the elbow at first. So I'm like,
but I think I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I'm not against what he did, but I think where he did it, in society right now, he's lucky. I mean, that's pretty much inexcusable. Like if he was white and that was a black guy that he hit, I think he's fired and he's out of basketball.
Why doesn't everybody accept losing graciously? Didn't you say? I didn't see the game, but didn't you say that on camera that there was like a timeout with like 50? They're up by 15. Timeout with 10 seconds left in the game. Just let the clock run out, man, and accept it. Shake the person's hand.
No, I don't. I don't agree there because these guys are so competitive that it's like to their core. Like every little thing like irks them. Like there's no losing graciously really, despite what they might say outwards.
Right, but isn't that the problem that they're so wound up? Isn't that the problem, that they're so wound up?
That's why they are.
That's
why they are where they. Not really. That's why they are where they are. I mean, they're there because that's innate in them. They've got that. They've got that drive.
I do think that Michigan was playing contested basketball, being down by 15. And I think that probably ticked off Wisconsin, so they call the timeout with 10 seconds left. And then when the actual handshake comes, Juwan said his comments, so I'll remember that. But then Wisconsin coach grabbed him by the elbow. You don't grab a 6'10", 6'11" man by the elbow. But at the same time,
how often do you respond with knocking someone out when they grab your elbow? I mean, if someone grabbed my elbow, my first inclination wouldn't be to just hit them. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad he didn't get fired because I like him, but I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised. Juwan Howard. Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if they fired him.
Yeah, Fab Five, baby.
Yeah,
Fab
it was
Five.
A great jersey. I've got his jersey actually when he was on the Washington Bullets.
Oh, can you imagine if Michigan gets into the tournament and wins?
Yeah,
anything can happen, right?
They got a good team.
UCLA, what were they, an 11 seed last year? That was a good basketball team that came in the right direction.
Yeah.
Next month, we're heading to Vegas, Guaranteed Money Podcast. We'll be there for March Madness, so it's going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, guys, have a great week, and obviously we'll be watching closely as to what develops in the Ukraine, but appreciate it.
Talk soon. Hopefully it, hopefully it moderates.
Thanks,
and you get a smooth week, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Chad.
All right, talk soon.